I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. Today I have Atha of Fancy Lad Quilt Co. You guys, if you're a book girly or boy, I don't know, book person, there we go. If you're a book person or you just love seeing characters come to life in quilts, you will love Atha's quilts. She does traditional piecing, so there's no paper piecing involved, but she has so many cute quilt patterns. Some she makes just for herself because she just wants to make the designs and she doesn't want to get sued for copyright infringement. But other ones she puts out, you can purchase them from her Etsy shop, make your own, and oh my gosh, they're so cute. If you haven't seen her Mudang little baby hippo block, then run to her shop and go check it out because it's so cute. She even says herself that's probably like a good jumping off point if you've never made her patterns. It's like a good ease into her pattern style and not as detailed and tricky as some of the other ones. And then she's got a whole Pride and Prejudice quilt with all the characters that we know and love from Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And, there's just some other really great stuff in there. So go check her out, Fancy Lad Quilt Co. on Instagram or in Etsy. And then also listen and get to know Atha better. And this is going to be great. And I'm so excited to tell you, if you haven't seen already, we have partnered up. And so if you make the Pride and Prejudice quilt, or you make a quilt or something fun out of the Mudang block, then when you send those quilt tops to me to be long armed, you get a 30% discount. So there's more details in the show notes. You can go to our Instagrams and check out the post about it and get more information. So while you're checking that out, give this a listen, get to know Atha better, and go check out her amazing patterns. Hey, y'all. I'm here to get you on this cozy earth train with me. I am still in love with my luxurious bamboo sheet set, and now I'm head over heels in love with the bamboo pajama set. I'm going to be real with you. I really struggle to find pajamas that fit. It's such a frustrating process. The legs are never long enough, sleeves are never long enough on the tops, and I just get frustrated because I just want to be cozy. So when I saw that I was able to order a tall in these Cozy Earth pajamas, I was floored. I was hoping for the best, and you know what? My expectations were exceeded. Not only are the pants plenty long enough, the sleeves are plenty long enough, and they fit my body so great. The pajamas are crafted with a stretch knit, so they stay comfortable and have a beautiful drape. And the breathability of the fabric keeps your temperature regulated, so you're not ever too hot or too cold. Putting these pajamas on was like a Christmas miracle. So if you're looking for the perfect gift for that someone in your life that just has everything, or you want to give yourself the gift of comfort this holiday season, look no further than Cozy Earth. Go to cozyearth.com and use code GRANNYS, that's GRANNYS, at checkout to receive 40% off. Upgrade your nights and transform your days with Cozy Earth. The link is in the show notes. And now, on to the episode. Hi, Atha. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is so fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't even know how I saw your post. I think it was like you were just like a suggested page for me to follow on Instagram one day. And I was like, I'm sorry, what is this? And so, of course, I was like immediately hooked. So, I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited too. I haven't done something like this before, so I'm all in.
Yay! Well, I'm glad to be your first podcast, and hopefully, this will get you some more followers and more attention on your amazing patterns. But before we talk about all that, I want to know how you got into like sewing and quilting in the first place.
So when I was in college, one of my friends was a big crocheter. I don't know if that's a word. She crocheted a lot and she did the really detailed ones. Like
Mhm.
if you've ever seen Frida's flowers, it's beautiful. And I was like, teach me. I'd love to do this. and I made like two blankets, and then I realized you had to go in and weave the ends in, and I was like, oh no, I can't. This is horrible. But I wanted to make a blanket, and I had promised, he's my husband now, but at the time boyfriend, I was like, I'll make you a blanket, don't worry. And I just never did. I started and then I'd stop. And I have like five or six that I just started, and it's probably like three lines. And again, I just got to that, you have to weave it in. And I was like, oh no, 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 this
Mm.
isn't for me. So I thought about doing quilting instead. For some reason, it just seemed to me like it would be easier to
Hmm.
finish. And I ran with that. So right before COVID, I got a sewing machine. I guess it would have been like December 2019. And that's what got me started. I decided to do, I think it's Welcome to Colorful Colorado, which is
Mm.
a beautiful, we wanted to move to Colorado. It's this beautiful quilt with all these colors. And I decided to do that for my husband after I did the like really beginner like patchwork thing with
Yeah.
Melanie Ham on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I started off from. And it was an interest. I don't know that it's less work than crocheting, but it just appeals to me more. And I really, really have issues with leaving things in.
Yeah.
I know that now.
Yeah. Yeah. I also crochet, and like my grandma taught me when I was little, but then I didn't pick it back up again until I was in college, and I was like, making scarves and stuff. But yeah, as I started to make more complicated things and had to weave in ends, I was like, so I don't really do projects where you have to weave in the ends because I don't want to. And so I totally feel that.
It's just it's all the cool stuff, like the little figurines you can do. I'm like, I'd love to do that, but that's the piece that just seems like a pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the tiny stitches. I'm like, I'm good. I'll sew something.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I get that. And like in comparison, quilting, maybe overall it doesn't take less time, but you're like, you get farther in a faster amount of time, if that makes
I'd
sense.
agree with that. Yeah, it's the cutting pieces out is kind of the like I hate doing that. And it's always like, okay, as soon as you're done with this, just grin and bear it.
Hmm.
But it does, you get bigger pieces faster and it just goes so much. It's just you get a lot covered.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm right there with you because same pipeline. I was like,
Yeah.
crochet to quilts. And I think that, is probably a thing. But I also feel like most quilters are like serial hobbyists. We all have like a million other hobbies that we've tried or still have and just like interchange them. But
I'd agree with that. I don't think you settle on something that's this like time consuming and honestly financially involved without being a serial hobby hopper, because
yeah,
you have to like making things.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So into your like, because you started right before COVID, so what a good time to start, because what the heck? Now you've got a hobby, right?
Right. Beautiful timing.
Yeah. But how soon into that did you start thinking about designing your own stuff?
Um, it had been suggested to me, but I think it was um I'm trying to think of the time frame because I started making my own designs when we were living in Colorado, like right before we moved. So I want to say it was like 3 years ago
Okay.
now. Um, it didn't really appeal to me, but I've always wanted like a dodo, like the bird, dodo
Mm-hmm.
bird pattern, and there wasn't one out there. And then I got really interested in axolotls, those
Mm-hmm.
like cute, weird looking things. And I was like, well, there's no axolotl pattern. So I made my own axolotl pattern when I was just like hyper fixated on them.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't great. Like it doesn't really look like an axolotl, but that kind of gave me the confidence, I guess, to try making my own.
Yeah.
Um, and it once I realized how to do it, it's gotten easier the more I've done it. But that initial axolotl is the one where I started trying. I use a lot of half square rectangles. They're like a modified half square rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense. A half square rectangle. You know what I like? Half rectangle.
Half rectangle triangle, I think is what
Okay,
they end up being called.
that makes more sense. I'm like,
Okay.
it can't be a half square rectangle. the half rectangle triangles that I use a lot.
Okay.
And I didn't really realize what I was doing when I first started designing. It's just it I need it when
Yeah.
I'm trying these things up.
Yeah.
And the axolotls when I first started using that, and then I've gotten better at using it. But it's like very much a foundational piece to everything that I'm doing. I hate them, but there's always a half rectangle triangle somewhere in my work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. To get those less severe angles, you have to, right?
Mhm. It's not fun, but they go fast the more you do them. So once you're
Yeah.
used to them, they're not that bad.
Yeah. It's just like with anything. It's like once you get the hang of it,
Yeah.
you can bust through them. But yeah, it's like, but if you've never done one before and you're used to half square triangles, like I remember making a pattern for a client using them for the first time. And like, I was like, I don't know how to do this. It was so hard. And plus, I mean, it wasn't that hard, but what made it tricky was that I was using her bridesmaid's dress to make some of the blocks to
Uh-huh.
incorporate into this quilt that I was making for the baby of the parents whose wedding she was in, whose the dress was from. It was a whole thing. I made like 3 quilts for her, like that way. So, just incorporating her bridesmaid's dress from that baby's parents' wedding, like into the quilt. So, anyway, but yeah, like trying to learn those on like dress. I don't even know what it was, like sateen kind of stuff.
Oh, that wouldn't
I
be.
was like, this is a nightmare. But on cotton, I was like, oh, this is way easier. So
Yeah, I can see that. And I bet that there's like a sentimental value too with the bridesmaid dress. So it's on top of it just moving all the time. You were probably paranoid about just messing up after you already cut it out.
yeah. Well, and it was like I used every scrap of the dress that I could. There were 2 different dresses because I think one of the other friends in the wedding like contributed her dress too. So I had a white dress and I had a navy blue dress. And like
Okay.
the white dress was like um most of the background. And I don't, it was a lot. So I literally used as much of the dresses as I possibly could. So I was like, if I mess up, there's nothing left to like fix it. So I had to be so careful. I was so stressed, but thankfully it's a forgiving pattern and it makes one extra block. Like when you cut everything out, it makes one extra full block. So I like had a backup in case. But anyway,
That's good.
not a time to learn that skill, but I did it. So now I'm like, oh, cotton, that's easy.
And sometimes that's nice though. You do something really tricky in a non-ideal setting, and then when you go back in an ideal setting, you're like, I got this. Like
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
but when you do it the first time, it sucks and you hate it and you're never going to do it again. But then the
Yeah.
second time, you're like, oh, I got this. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh, who was I kidding? Yeah. Exactly. Um, so I think the thing that like really, because at first when I very first saw like your Instagram page, I was like, oh my gosh, how cute, paper piece blocks, whatever. And then I'm realizing that they're all traditionally pieced. I was like, this woman is on fire. Like, what is happening right now? So yeah, like, did you want to keep it traditionally pieced or was paper piecing just like not on the table for you? Like, what it was the thinking there?
Um, so I tried paper piecing once and I used that freezer paper method and
Hmm.
hated it. Like I did, have you seen the like bumpy tulip pink? It's like the Loch Ness monster pattern.
Yeah.
I like got really excited the summer of COVID, so it was like
Hmm.
really early in my quilting like adventures. I got really excited. I did one little bump and I was like, I hate this. Like the freezer paper thing just wasn't working for me. I should have just
Yeah.
committed to the ripping it out. So I think part of it was I had a bad experience trying
Mm.
it one time, so I wasn't going to go back. I've also done a lot of Elizabeth Hartman patterns.
Hmm.
So I kind of had an idea of this is how you would kind of approach it. You just do the layered stitch and flips.
Yeah.
And I branched off from that. So
Okay.
most of the earlier ones are a lot um, more straightforward. Like I have a little raccoon Tanuki.
Hmm.
He looks like,
Tanuki.
yeah,
Yeah.
Tanuki. And that one was, I think, I'm gonna try to write that one up because I do really like it and I thought it was cute. but it's a lot more straightforward. It doesn't have quite as many layers. The
Okay.
stuff like Pride and Prejudice has a
Hmm.
ton of layers, or anything where I'm doing like dresses,
Hmm.
I have to do a bunch of the layers. So I think it started as really building off of those foundations I had using the stitch and flip techniques that a lot of the
Hmm.
traditionally piece patterns use. I just kept building and realizing, oh, if I layer the stitch and flip, I can get the angles that I want, or I can get the details that I want. And I
Yeah.
think it verges on a lot of paper piecing, like the theory behind it,
Hmm.
but doesn't quite go into the extremes. Like I can't get too small with my pieces because I'm limited with the traditional, but I can get very detailed as long as I figure out how to layer and what order it is.
Okay.
So I think I like talked around your question, but kind of got there.
No, yeah, you got there. Yeah. No, I was just wondering like, yeah, what the thinking was, you know, leaning into the traditional piecing versus the paper piecing. But if you don't like paper piecing, like then yeah, why would you do something? And if you could figure it out in a way that makes more sense to you, that feels more comfortable in your zone, like that's exactly, it's like do what makes you happy, right? Like there's no sense in trying to force yourself to into a technique that you don't like or don't want to do. So,
Right. And I think that's what it was. I haven't tried other types of paper piecing. There's entirely a big chance that I would try the more traditional and love it. I
mhm.
just do not like the freezer paper method.
Yeah, I've never done the freezer paper version, so that's interesting. But I have dabbled in a bit more of like the traditional, like you stitch on the lines and then flip it
Yeah.
and all that. So it can be a little frustrating just like thinking backwards and like I've done things wrong so many times and have to rip it out and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my paper is literally going to fall apart if I stitch this one more time." But it's like you just have to, you know.
Right. And I feel anytime you're having to like backstitch that much, there's also the chance that the fabric itself isn't gonna make it. So it's like,
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, "Oh, I need a new scrap now because that is dust." And yeah, when they get really tiny, it's like, "Oh, I did like a somebody had designed this like lightsaber block. So it was like all these like lightsaber handles and the finished block was supposed to only be 12 inches, but I was like, I can't, that's too tiny. Like there's no way. So I blew it up by like double and even that was still and there's pieces I'm like, I literally don't know how I sewed that because my needle was bigger than that slice of fabric. Like
yeah, sometimes I see the details. I don't remember her Instagram tag, but there's somebody who does these incredibly detailed paper piecing, and she'll do these like wacky animal paper piecing. And I'm like, how did you get the neat? Like, I don't
Mhm.
know how I can see this given what I know about seam allowances. I don't understand how this is like visible for me to see.
Right? I know it's confusing. Like, oh, it does show up because I'm like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way it works. I don't know. It's crazy. And I love it because I think it is a cool aspect, but I also love when you can get that same kind of look with traditional piecing too, because it's like paper piecing can also feel kind of wasteful because you have to cut a scrap that's like large enough to cover the space to flip it, but it's like you can't cut it exact because of the nature of it. So it kind of feels like wasteful. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
And mine does have like a lot of excess, but it's big enough to reuse, I guess. Um, I think templates are probably the best in terms of like saving fabric.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so you designed the axolotl and then what came after that? Like what was your next?
I was gonna call them trash pandas. I made like a
Oh.
little trash can with a bow, and then I had the like raccoon slash
Hmm.
tanuki. And I wanted the other thing I think I was aiming for is I tend to like novelty prints. So
Hmm.
I wanted to have the option of doing these kind of like character pieces, but also have enough space to have a big print to showcase.
Okay.
So I gave them like little tummies and then these aprons. So the apron could have the big fabric or the tummy could have the big fabric. And I did it partially for Kimberly Kite's the one with the turnips.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a little turnip apron.
Yeah.
So that was the next one. And then I did a few, I was gonna do like varmints, like possum, chipmunk, and a fox. And I
Mhm.
got a little frustrated, but that led to me actually just doing flat out an Animal Crossing quilts.
Mm.
And I think that's when I just really started running with it, and got a lot more confidence in what I was able to do with it. And that
Okay.
was a really fun one. It's still, I'm really bad about making a bunch of quilt tops and then they just kind of like languish in a cabinet somewhere because I'm like, oh, that was fun. Okay, next thing.
Yeah.
That one's still languishing and it's been like 2 years. It's going to be 3 years after December, maybe. Yeah. But
That's
I
so
know it
funny.
is. Yeah. So anybody who's curious what happens to most of these, I make them and then they sit until I like feel motivated enough to either try quilting it myself or send it to somebody else to quilt for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know it's like being able to do a start to finish is great, but yeah, it's like you get to that point where you're done with the top and you're like, ugh.
I don't want to look at it for a while. It's time to look at something new. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that too. Even though I have a long arm right downstairs, like I just
Does it make it easier? Because I keep thinking maybe if I had one, I would finish these.
no,
Does no?
no,
Okay.
absolutely not.
That's like the see, and like you would get it, you wouldn't know where to put it, and then it would just, I feel like, do you have a couch for laundry? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I do. It's right behind
It
me.
would, that's like, I feel like the long arm would be the like quilt top couch. Instead
Yeah,
of like piling your clean laundry that you don't want to fold, you would pile your quilt tops that you don't want to quilt.
yeah. I mean, I have a business, so I'm constantly long arming, but my own stuff, no. I'm like, I'm still sitting on my youngest son's stepson's graduation quilt. He graduated last May, like a year and a half ago. So, I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things where I think because I do it so much, when it gets to my own stuff, I'm like, ugh, I'm burnt out because I've been long arming so much. But I think if I wasn't, I might be a little more motivated to do it myself or like to put my own stuff on there. But I also don't get to make a lot of my own stuff either, like just the nature of my business. But which is fine, I'm not complaining. It's just one of those things where it's like I get finished with something for me and then I'm like, okay, I let a lot of work pile up, so I need to get other people's quilts on and then I'm like, ugh, mine can wait. But I think
Right.
it just I don't know that it's like any different. Some people are just toppers. They like making their tops and the quilting is just kind of like, ugh, they just do it to get it done and it's not the part they enjoy. I do enjoy the long arming, so I think if I have the space and time, I definitely do like to try to get my quilt on as soon as I can, but there's times where I'm like, "Mm, I'm uninterested in looking at that anymore."
Yeah, and I think reaching that point in the project and stepping away though is a good skill to have because that's how you can get into the burnout.
Yeah,
Like there have been times when I've really fixated on a project and then I don't have the common sense to step away from it and just take a break and not look at it.
yeah,
And then I'm like, I don't really want to sew. I have to force myself to get up to like cut the fabric. And
yeah,
if I would have just put it to the side sooner, I would keep going.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think my time management, you'd think after doing this for a few years, like full time, I'd figure it out. But um, yeah, time management on like knowing how long a certain, quilt is going to take or like how long it's going to take to like yeah, just like put a quilt top together and then have enough time and space in between to be able to like give it some space before it needs to be quilted kind of thing. It's like that's another issue I run into is like all of a sudden I need to I have a deadline and then it's like rush, rush, rush. And then I don't have time to actually enjoy the whole process because I'm just trying to panic, get it all done. So
It's like a fever dream when you think back on it. It's like, I remember that I did this, but I don't remember anything else that was going on.
Yeah, honestly, I'm like, if I didn't have pictures, I wouldn't remember some of these quilts. I'm like, oh yeah, I made that quilt. Like, I can't believe I didn't remember it, you know? And especially if I send them out my door, like to somebody else, if they're my own, it's like I see them, I'm like, yeah, obviously I made that quilt. But yeah, if it goes to somebody else, I'm like, wow, I don't remember making that.
Any sort of baby quilt that you give to somebody, most of the time it's like, oh yeah, I did do that, didn't I? That was,
Yeah,
yeah, I did that thing.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, did I make that person a baby quilt? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not hearing any complaints that they haven't gotten one, so I'm assuming that they did get one. So we're gonna just go with that.
Let's stroll with it. They'll say something, maybe.
Yeah, if not, that's our own problem. You want a quilt, you gotta ask for one. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I kind of agree. I like sometimes you give quilts to people and it's like, where did these end up?
Right?
Just I want to know before I make you something that took a lot of time.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you don't, I feel like anytime I make a quilt for somebody, it's with the knowledge that it might not be used, or it
Yeah.
might kind of end up somewhere and you have to kind of just embrace it. But if I see somebody using the quilt, it's definitely a lot more motivation for me to make something for them again.
Yeah.
But anytime you're making a quilt, it's just always that, oh, what's going to happen to this if I put this time, energy, and thought into it?
Yeah.
And it's that gamble.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because it's like, I just hear these stories of people are like, oh yeah, I made this quilt and gifted it to this person and I've never seen it since. Or like, I go to their house all the time and they have it tucked away and like it's like, no. And I tell people too, I'm like, especially baby quilts, I'm like, I hope to see this quilt covered in baby shit and like barf and toys and like dirt. Like, I'm making this for your kid to use. Like, I don't want it to get tucked away. If it rips, I'll fix it. If we need to make a new one, we'll make a new one. Like, but I want to know that this quilt was used and loved because like I made it for that purpose. And like, okay. And then I see it tucked away. I'm like, get that out. Go sit in the dirt with it. Like,
Yeah. Or do something like don't I've been like I've given quilts before and then it's like, oh yeah, we use your quilt and then they open up the cabinet. It's like it's been in the cabinet the entire time. Are you sure you're using it? And
yeah.
it's like pristine and you're just like, oh,
Like put it on your
okay.
sofa, spill some coffee
Yeah.
on it, like mac and cheese. I don't know. Like,
My dog ate it's the very first quilt that I made for my husband and like actually fixed or finished it. My dog ate the binding on it,
oh,
like on the side, and
yeah.
I every once in a while I catch him like chewing on it, but it is a well-loved quilt. I need to go back and fix the binding, but you can definitely it's got like a lot of texture at the bottom where he kind of like gnawed on it. But
Yeah.
that's how you know it's out and about. So I wasn't thrilled when I saw him doing it, but at least it's being used.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And like even like this quilt that's on the sofa behind me, my mom actually made that for me when I graduated from my program. So
wow.
yeah, it was really sweet. And it has white minky on the back. And I was like, you put white on a quilt for me? Are you on are you on drugs? No. But it's minky, so it doesn't really hold stains, which is nice because it's acrylic,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but also fortunately, like it stays nice. And so I did have it kind of like tucked away and like wasn't really bringing it down or like putting it on the sofa or anything. And um then I finally started taking it out and like it was in our living room, but then I was like, it's kind of weird because it's got a label on it that's like to me from my parents, so I was like, that one can live upstairs in our space. We can put all the other ones down there, but um just because we run an Airbnb out of our master suite downstairs. And so we have
Oh,
like strangers in our house all the time, which sounds creepy, but it's not. It's been really great. So um but it's just like too personal for me to leave down there.
yeah, anything sentimental, because you never know. I'm sure nobody would like run off with it, but they might not really be as careful if they're drinking whatever or
Yeah.
eating whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but that's like my one story of a quilt that I haven't, it took me a while to finally use it. I was like, I keep telling everybody else to use their quilts and not be afraid of it. But I'm like, it's too precious. My mom's like, do you hear yourself? I'm like, yes. Yes, I do. But It's all good. Yeah, but it's nice to see them in use, but it's also like when they're not in use, it's like I made that for you to use, and I really want you
Right.
to. I put a lot of
Yeah.
time into it.
Or at least have it out like decoratively. I have a friend
Yeah,
that I made a baby quilt for, and it's always anytime I get a picture of her daughter's room, it's always in a position of honor. And I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. I don't think it's getting dirty or anything, but she
it's there.
uses it decoratively. Yeah. And I'm like, as long as you're happy to have it, you're showcasing it or using it, that's fine. It's when it
Yeah.
gets pulled out of the cabinet somewhere that I'm like, that's when I do the quilt tops I don't want to finish, don't do that to the finished quilt.
Right. You're like, no, those got finished. Those need to be shown and have
Right.
like a yeah, a place of honor to be displayed.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, so like you've been putting out so many patterns and I'm like, it's crazy. I don't even know how you have time to like design so many things, let alone make them. So are you getting people requesting the things that you're making, or is it just stuff that you are just really inspired by and so you really just want to make it?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix. The patterns that I've published are public domain. I'm like deep dark fears getting sued for something.
Oh,
So I try not to, like I did a Broadway quilt. I'm probably
mhm.
not going to write that one up for sale just because that's a
Broadway.
fun thing. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to step into that. But some of the others, it's been whether or not people express an interest. So the Pride and Prejudice one, I did kind of on a whim, and it's Pride and Prejudice, so everybody was really interested.
Yeah.
And the X-Files was also just kind of a random. Um, I think I had done a labyrinth block that's one of my things that I just haven't finished. And in the labyrinth movie, Sarah has like that really big ball gown.
Hmm.
And so after I was done with it, I was like, that was really fun. And trying to think of other big gowns that would be fun to design, which led
Yeah.
me to the um, Henry VIII slides. And that's when I made the exercise pattern.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends. I think a lot of it's whatever my interests are at the time or what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
I tend to like doing historical dresses. I think
Yeah.
they're really fun. I'm trying to make a dress myself right now, but I'm not really big on making clothing. So being able to do it in the quilt block is my like adventurous, I guess. Um, so it just depends. Whatever I'm interested in is kind of what I'll do. I will sometimes take into consideration what people want to see, but I have a very short attention span. So if I'm not really interested in it, there's a really good chance it's not going to get finished. If I am
Hmm.
interested in it, there's a much bigger chance I'll keep doing it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, like just I saw your Beetlejuice coat and I like sent it to my sister and I was like showing everybody. I was like, guys, look at this. I just like I couldn't handle it. I loved it so much. And so just seeing that kind of stuff, like, yeah, was that the first jacket you've ever made? And like you're saying like apparel is not your favorite, but like is do you plan to make more coats out of stuff or
So I have made jackets before, and that's
okay.
actually the fourth time that I've made that specific jacket.
Okay.
Um, I like making quilt jackets. It was a lot easier doing that one now than it has previously been. And I think part of it's just I've been doing a lot of sewing, and it's probably just easy compared to some of the other stuff I've been doing.
Yeah.
With apparel, I would like to keep making some. Right now, I'm trying to make them. I don't know if you've seen it on my stories, but like the Queen Amidala Tudor style dress is what I'm trying to do. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to quilt it. So I quilted the bodice. I'm going to try to quilt the panels.
Mm,
Um, so I'll probably intermix it just because it gets sometimes boring if I'm doing the same stuff over and over again.
yeah.
And I have a lot of abandoned blocks that can be turned into a jacket. And realistically, I don't think I'm ever going to make a bag. I keep telling myself I'll make a bag for things, but the jackets are more likely.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. And
yeah.
like it's yeah, being able to switch it up and like change the skills that you're working with is kind of nice and make different things. Cause yeah, like you said, if you're just like repetitively making only the same things over and over, you're like, hey, I've done this 65 times. Like,
Right. And it's like I enjoy it, but sometimes the cutting the small pieces out, cutting enough of them out, Um, or when I design patterns, I do it on wrapping paper, but then I have
Hmm.
to count each individual piece so that I can figure out what parts I need.
Yeah.
And getting to that point where I have to like label each part, figure out the size. Sometimes that's a big mental hurdle, and just
Hmm.
having something already written for like the apparel is kind of nice because I don't have to count and figure out the little pieces.
Yeah. You're like, oh, it's already done. Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm just like in awe of it. I'm not a designer brain, and it's not that I couldn't or that whatever, but just I just have so much respect and so much like I just get so inspired by people who have that design brain and want to make their own things and like take it upon themselves to do it. So that's really cool. And like, yeah, I guess is like the quilt math part, is that like something that has interested you, or is that something that you just kind of have to you deal with it because you want the block and so you just figure it out and that's fine? Or yeah, like yeah, what part of the process is
For
your
the
favorite, I guess?
I like to draw. When I was in high school, I wanted to go into art or graphic design. And I think I still like I'll share caricatures that I'll do sometimes.
Hmm.
I like drawing clothes and I like drawing faces. The math part I hate. It's my husband's really good at math and I'm not. I was definitely the fine arts type of person. And when I was in college, he was helping me with you know how you had to take the courses just to check it off.
Hmm.
I had to do chemistry
Hmm.
and I had done undergrad. It was a chem course for grad program just to
Okay.
check off the box. And I had to do fractions. And I was like, oh, I haven't done these since I was like 17, 18
Yeah.
months. And he would tease me because I'd always be like, can you check my work and help me? And I'd give him like 5 minutes. And if he didn't come over, I was like, I'm done with the numbers, submit. And then I'd be like, oh, I did so bad on that quiz. I don't know why. So the math part is not my favorite. The only like mathy thing about it is more just counting the boxes to figure out how big the piece is.
Hmm.
I try to avoid anything where I'm going to have to actually calculate stuff because I just don't. I think my brain just like turns off sometimes when it sees numbers. It's like, oh, I'm just going to check out and you can figure it out, or somebody else can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the part that kind of trips me up because it's like anytime I've tried to modify something and I'm like, oh, if I just like do this and shrink this and still keep the seam allowance and and it like never works out. I'm like, why doesn't this work? So yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, am I overthinking it or did I just miss like a vital step? Like, where did this? That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my exact experience with anything math related. Just something goes wrong without fail.
Yeah. Which, it is what it is. And I'm more power to the people who love that part because it's like I've talked to plenty of people who are like, oh my gosh, I love figuring out the math. I'm like, I'm glad you do because there's a lot of us who don't want to think about it. And I'm really
Right.
grateful to pattern writers.
Well, it does, like, it seems more mathy what I do than it is. A lot of it is just me being like, okay, there's 2 boxes down and then 3 boxes across. Okay, so then I add the seam allowance and I figured out what size that like rectangle should be.
Yeah.
And if I'm using, I use Illustrator to do the graphics.
Okay.
So what I've realized is I can just, if I want to figure out what size that like block is, not finished, but if I'm trying to figure out what a piece of the block is, I've realized I can just drag the little box and make it big
Hmm.
enough to cover it, and then it'll tell me basically how big it is. So
Yeah.
if you're like, oh, it's 8 by 6. Okay, so this one would be 8.5 by 6.5. I figured it out.
Yeah.
So anything to avoid the actual math component is normally the goal.
I love that. That's so funny. Oh man. Um, Also you have that Mudang pattern out. Oh my God. I love it so much. Little feisty hippo. Like obviously she's a moment, so clearly that's where that came from. But like was it just something you wanted to design, or were like, I don't know, like were people asking for it or
So I think it was again going when I was in grad school, Fiona was really big,
Mm.
and a group of us would just send Fiona memes to each other during lectures. And I find baby hippos to be adorable. I don't think adult hippos are very cute. Like and it's like a really fast thing where it's so cute, such a cute little baby hippo, and then it's like, oh, that they don't age well, is what I'm trying to say. So part of it was my husband started sending me mooding memes, and I was like, oh my god, another baby hippo! This is amazing.
Hmm.
So I did a doodle of mooding biting the knee
Mm.
with the like whatever you do to block out a curse word where it's like hashtag
Oh
exclamation
yeah.
mark. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And I got really excited about it, but it didn't quite, it wasn't cute enough, I guess. So I kept
Mm.
playing with it. And when I posted the sketch, people were really interested in it. So I was like, oh, okay, sure, I'll try making the block. And I wasn't going to sell it because I had other stuff that I was working on, but it was kind of a palette cleanser, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just got a lot of requests for it. So it's like, okay, I'll just spit it out and we can see if and it worked. So it's
Yeah.
definitely one of the easier ones that I've made. I think anybody looking to start with one of my patterns should start with Mudane because she's going to be a really good stepping stone. But it
Hmm.
was a mixture of me being really interested in baby hippos and then people being really interested in Mudane that kind of pushed me to just make it.
Yeah. That's so fun. And like fun that you can like memorialize a moment, right? Because like now everybody's gonna see that and go, oh my God, remember Moo Day.
I know, and I keep getting people saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna make this for Christmas gifts." I'm like, "Oh, okay, so it's gonna be like the 2024 quilting Christmas gift that." Oh yeah, I remember that baby hippo. She was biting everybody, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It just cracks me up because like my mom loves hippos. She's always loved like hippos has been always been her. She has like figurines and stuffed animals and like it's always been her thing. So when that came out, I was like, oh, I might need to make that and make something for her because it's so cute. I just love it. But she's a mood and I'm here for it. So it's great to see that, somebody was willing to put in the work to give us the people what we want.
Somebody took that hit.
Oh my Oh, I love it so much. Okay, so you just recently released.
It was Pride and Prejudice and then New Day. Those have been the two. And then before that, it was Ex-Wives. I haven't written up a bunch of patterns. I think those are the three big ones.
Okay, and those are all for sale?
Mhm.
Those ones are?
They're all on
Okay.
my Etsy.
Okay.
I'm playing with, I'm working on it, Greek Gods. I've
Oh
finished it,
yeah.
but I'm like slowly publishing, I guess, the pictures. I'm
Okay.
playing with either releasing that one next or I did a bodice stripper, like the old style romance novel quotes a while back.
Yeah.
And that's the other one I was playing with releasing because everybody liked the little cowboy that I made.
Yeah.
um, but I haven't decided with those. The Greek gods is very detailed and there's a lot of steps, so it would take me quite a bit of time to write it up and test it. So I'm kind of like
Yeah.
not sure when I would do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw like what you were posting about it. It looks really cool, the Greek gods and just like so yeah, it is very detailed. So I was like, oh dang, like you can kind of see the progression though, like you can see where you're getting more comfortable with certain like will with more detailed pieces and bits of in your quilts, which is like so cool to see. I love to see that progression in people and still offering things that are more simple for, like a little baby hippo block if people want easy access to your designs, but maybe aren't ready for a full scale Greek gods quilt.
Right.
But or like making a Regency ball gown on out of quilting fabric. But yeah, that's so fun. So yeah, so you have an Etsy shop for the patterns that you are releasing as to sell, but not the ones that you're scared to get sued over, which I don't blame you.
As long as they,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what I don't think I'm ever gonna sell the quilt tops. I've gotten asked about that, but they take a long time to make and it's just a little bit too much of I have no idea how I would even begin to price those. But the patterns I'm willing to try and sell, just not anything copyrighted.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Which makes sense. It's like you don't want to take someone else's work and try to make it your own or, yeah, cross that line. And who knows, like maybe one of these days you decide to start getting licensed and that might be something different. It's like I keep seeing, oh, do you my friend Fran over at Cotton and Joy, she actually just got her pattern licensed with Sarah J. Moss for she's making the Illyrian Mountains from
Yeah. Like I
from ACOTAR,
I
and the 3 stars and the 3 mountain. Like she got it licensed with Sarah J. Moss. So she's like, for real, it's a for real ACOTAR quilt.
oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
so cool though.
Yeah. So maybe there's something like that in your future too, if you feel like it. But
If I think I would probably pursue like trying to get the licensing for the office. That would be one that would be so cool because I've seen the crochet kits that they'll have where you
yeah,
like that would be kind of fun and they'd be kind of a challenge to make sure everybody is recognizable. But that
yeah,
is awesome that she was able to get that from Moss to
yeah.
produce.
Mother Moss. Yeah.
Oh my
Um, it's exciting though. And it's fun to see, like, because I think we have these characters and we have these stories that we all love and that resonate with us, and not all of us have the whim to design something for ourselves. And so to see somebody out there who's willing to like put these characters into fabric and like make it so that we can make them ourselves if we want that, it's like it's exciting and it's fun because it builds more community within the quilting community and gives people a chance to like show more about who they are inside and outside of quilting. So it's really fun to see that.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice because I don't like you see doodles a lot. I see a lot of crochet, like fan art type of stuff, but quilting I don't think always gets that chance to shine in those areas of interest. And I think some of it's just it doesn't always get used out like for um, I guess character piecing. I see a lot of animals, but I feel like people, like actual humans, aren't always used as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think it's just tricky, right? Like it just might be that the nature of trying to get it right, of like trying to make it recognizable. And when she said, like, especially like the office characters are so iconic, and it's like you want to see that person and not just be like, well, is that Jim or is that Dwight or is that Michael or is that, it's like, no, it's you want it to be that person and
Right.
be
That
recognizable. And so maybe that's why people hesitate from it, you know, but
it's tricky, yeah.
you seem to have figured it out. So
All the like doodles that I did in high school classes when I wasn't paying attention have finally paid off.
yeah, right. I know. It's like it's funny, like the things that come back and like work their way into our adult lives that maybe we didn't ever think were gonna like be part of our lives anymore. It's just like, oh, that's something I did back then.
Yeah, and I thought with drawing, I think this kind of brought it back because I just stopped drawing for whatever reason. It just wasn't catching my interest. And then once I realized that I could connect the two, it's like, oh, I did really enjoy doing that for a reason. Like I have
Yeah,
fun doing it, and it's kind of fun adding little details. So
yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. And it's such a fun artistic outlet, to channel so many emotions and energy, and it's it's a good it's a good hobby, and just something to have that's therapeutic and kind of keep your mind working and stretch it too. It's like
Yeah.
oh yeah, so you mentioned your master's program and stuff. So you don't have to go into details, but like, yeah, what did you go to school for?
Speech language pathology.
Oh, awesome.
So
Okay.
I'm a speech language pathologist. Part of the reason I was able to write up Pride and Prejudice is because I'm school based. So the summers have really helped.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I used to teach third grade, so I was definitely in cahoots with our speech language pathologist also, and he was amazing. And you guys, it's God's work. I just say it all the time because, like, honestly, like just helping kids just in those different capacities is like, you know, we all had our role, and just allowing the space for kids to learn what they needed to learn and just helping them. It's like so important. So thank you for doing what you do.
You. I think, did you stop? How long were you a teacher?
I was a teacher for 8 years and then I quit in like at the end of the 2020-2021 school year. So I did survived COVID, did 1 year of like COVID school, and I was just like, it wasn't that specifically, but it was just like a compounding thing that like I
Yeah.
just needed to step away, and we had the business already. So I just was like, well, I'm coming in full time. And my mom was like, okay. And then this summer I was like, I'm buying you out. She was like, okay. So this is what
Yeah,
I do now.
that makes sense. And it's I always respect the classroom teachers because it's just a lot. Like I do small group management, but doing like large group management and just being that invested in that many people,
Mhm.
it's impressive. Like that's a lot.
It is a lot. It is, but I think if you're in the right environment and you feel supported and you have good family support, like
Yeah.
it's hard, but at the end of the day, it's like if you're in that supported if you're in a supportive environment, it's okay. But I think it's hard to find environments that feel supportive and you feel like you can actually do your job.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different topic of conversation. But anyway, I was just curious because yeah, like, you know, going through a master's degree no matter what is just like it's a lot of work. And so I was just curious to know like what you did. And it's funny because there are so many teachers who also quilt or educators who also have like fiber hobbies because I think just that working with your hands is so important and gives you somewhere to channel all that like gah.
Yeah. And I've been doing this for 7 years now. I
Mm,
think this is my seventh. I think.
okay.
The first year, I tend to be like a very anxious person, and it's hard
Me
for me
too.
not to bring. Yeah, it's like hard not to bring things, and it's again going back to like the fear of being sued. I think there's just this like present fear of getting in trouble for something.
Yeah.
I was raised Catholic, and I'm gonna attribute it to just like latent Catholic guilt,
Yeah, for
both
sure.
by being able to come home and just have something that's okay, I have to cut, I have to sew.
Hmm.
It's more meditative. And I have
Yeah.
to watch it because sometimes if I'm if it's something I'm too used to doing, I can fall into just autopilot. And
Yeah.
then it stops being meditative and it's just more of like a conduit for me to hyperfixate on something that I don't need to fixate on
Yeah.
from work or from whatever. But
Yeah.
just the first year especially, I think I would have started this my second year working, and it just was a massive stress reliever where I
Hmm.
could come home, I didn't have to think about am I doing this right, am I on top of everything, what am I going to do tomorrow. It's just time for me to focus and
Yeah.
do something else. So I wonder if that's partially why so many teachers or people in education like gravitate towards that hands-on type of
Yeah.
fiber art.
Yeah. I would guess. And like I knew a few people in my school that did like some kind of sewing and one person who did make quilts. And so it's just interesting to see and like just like on social media just seeing so many people like, oh, I'm a teacher by day or like I'm a librarian or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a vibe. So, and I think yeah, just somewhere to leave that anxious stress of like, yeah, like what's going on in my work day versus like where can I come home and like de-stress, do something that's still productive and still make like creating something, still producing something, but like is low stakes. Like if I have to seam rip, it's fine. It's not a
Right.
child's future.
And it's not this, I think there's something freeing about like if it's wrong, it's fine. You're not gonna
Yeah.
get in trouble if it's wrong. You're not gonna get in trouble. Again, like you can
Yeah.
notice like my overarching little theme, but it's just
Yeah.
if it's messed up, it's fine. I can fix it or I can just start over. There's
Yeah.
nothing writing on this except my own like frustration tolerance.
Yeah.
I'll just do something else, but this one gets to be too bad.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, that's so cool. And again, thank you for being in that space because it's a hard space to be in right now, I think sometimes. So I appreciate you.
As long as I have my breaks, I'm fine.
Right?
Like, I got a week off. It's fine. I can take a breather and go right back in and be refreshed and ready to work with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really nice. The school I worked at, we had like pretty frequent breaks. We weren't year round, but they call it a balance calendar. So we were like
Yeah.
every 6 to 8 weeks, just depending. We had about a week off. So
It helps.
yeah, it definitely helped a lot. And then it was like the kids could come back and they felt a little more refreshed because they weren't just like pushing so hard. And yeah, it was nice. So I did like that about it. And summers weren't as long, but it was kind of like I start to get super bored towards the end of summer anyway. And I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to like get back to doing something. And
Right.
so that was nice to just have be a little more balanced. It's like, yeah, let's work really hard for 6 weeks. Let's take a break and then we'll come back and we'll work really hard for 7 weeks and then we'll take a break. It's like it was really nice. And the kids started to look forward to their breaks and families would take their kids to do fun stuff so then they could come back. And it was just like it was fun. So anyway, the breaks are feel like, oh, must be nice having summers off. I'm like, you don't know what I do for 9 months out of the year, do you?
Yeah, there's a reason why there's so much burnout in the field. It's like the summers are probably it's good for everybody, not just the kids, the adults too. I think everybody needs a little bit of time away to just
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah. And if the energy is off or it's like if the mix is kind of strange, then it's like you do need that time away to regulate again
Yeah,
for the
no, and
kids too.
it's good. And I think other like fields could benefit from having more time off because I feel like
Yeah.
it would give people a chance to just come back and do their best versus burning out and then getting
Hmm.
like an itty bitty little break and kind of almost being refreshed and then burning out again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. And just like knowing that there's other countries around the world that are doing that successfully, it's like, why can't we?
I know the most of Europe, it seems like
Hmm.
it's kind of perfected that. And I'm like, oh, that must be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Must be nice. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny too, because I think like owning my own business, I kind of get that a lot too. Like, oh, it must be so nice you can do whatever you want. I'm like, I mean, I can't because if I'm not there to answer the emails and answer my Etsy messages and interface with customers and be here for people to pick up their stuff and long arm their quilts and like order all the supplies I need. Like, I don't have time to just go do whatever I want. And so,
No, and I bet there's more pressure to you to do it on your downtime too, because it's like this can't really sit or you're the only one that's gonna handle it. Like
yeah,
Share My Network isn't gonna pick it up for you. You're the one that's ultimately gonna do it, and you have to
yeah,
deal with that whatever like negative reaction you get if you go too long without addressing it.
yeah, for sure. For sure. So it's perceptions are wild out there because I think, yeah, unless you've experienced it or have like a more open mind for like what other people are experiencing, it's hard to see that. And so I think too, probably people see your designs and think, oh, you have so much time on your hands, like you can just whip these things out, which as you know, and I know, it's probably like been months and months in the works and now you're sharing it kind of thing.
Yeah, my husband works later than me, so sometimes it's just like, oh, I got really fixated on this project, so got home from work, I sewed until he got home, and then just kept doing that. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it's me you want to have like a back stock of stuff that you've been working on so that you can post instead of just
Yeah.
posting as you go, because that just is tricky to keep up with.
Yeah, exactly. Cause then you're like, oh, I haven't sewn anything. Oh, I can't post anything. And it's hard.
Right.
That like maintaining that social media presence. It's like, well, I haven't sewn anything in 7 days. So I'll sew something really fast so I have some content to post. I'm like, what am I doing?
Right. I'm always anybody that's able to take social media and make it into a full-time career, I'm so impressed by because it seems exhausting. Even
Yeah.
just like I figured out how to schedule posts and I've been like, woohoo, I can just like get it
Hmm.
all done and post it. But anybody that like streams or just is professionally influencing, I guess,
Yeah.
I respect that because I don't think you get any downtime away from it. It is definitely, it's gotta be just front and present in your mind all day, every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Like, oh, how can I turn this into a video
Yeah.
or how can I turn this into like some kind of content? It's like, that's gotta be, yeah, exhausting because you're like curating your whole life, not just like a shot of a project. Like, so
With the move to reels and stuff, it's like there's got to be a lot of pressure just to have your phone on and up. But
yeah, yeah, it's tricky. I think though, at least for me, I'm in the mindset where I'm like, if I can't operate my business without spending so much time on social media, then like that tells me that things need to change. But also like I'm not gonna be the person who like just like gives into that because it's like, no, I want to be able to grow my business without feeling that pressure of like having to do things a certain way. And it's like nothing against anybody doing whatever they feel like they need to do for their business. Cause like we all have different wants and needs like to be met. And so I'm I'm just too like scatterbrained. And if I like get working on something or I'm like in a focus on a project for a client, especially like I need to stay focused on that. And if I'm constantly breaking to like take videos of it or try to have the right angle, or it just makes it take so much longer because it's just me, like it's one of those, and a lot of people, it is just them as well. Like I'm not trying to say that
yeah,
everybody has assistants or whatever, but like my brain just does not my little anxiety and ADHD is just like it does not work that way. So it's like you get what you get and that's going to be good enough. So
and it does take time. Like taking those pictures, it can take several hours just to get everything set up right, and then
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely time consuming. So I totally understand not wanting to break from the project and just like, I need to get this done. No pictures, maybe at the end, but not for the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to be better, at least try to take like one picture like during each kind of different stage so I can like post more about certain projects. And but yeah, it's like sometimes I'm like really good about it and I take lots of pictures and kind of create lots of content, and other times I'm like I didn't take a single picture of that entire quilt. Like what? So there's definitely been things that have like left my doors and I'm like I don't know. I don't have pictures. So it's fine. It's not for me anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah. And sometimes I remember making a baby quilt for someone out of like little hedgehogs, and I
Mm.
didn't take any pictures. It was I need to get it done. And every once in a while I think about it and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that thing. But I didn't take any pictures of it, so I don't remember it very well.
Yeah, you're like, oh well, that's fine. Hopefully they take a lot of pictures of their kid with their quilt and then it's in their memories, right? It's for them anyway.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me today. I've loved chatting with you and getting to know more about you and about your quilting style. And it's just so exciting to see all your different designs coming to life. And so, if anybody needs to get to you online, how can they find you online?
Mainly Instagram. I'm trying to branch out more, but mainly Instagram is what I have. I have a TikTok, but it's hard to do multiple things.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so Instagram, you're at Fancy Lad Quilt Co.
Hmm.
And your Etsy shop is the same?
Yep. All
Perfect.
fancy lad.
Okay. And that's after your dog. You named after your dog.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's Kip. It's we like watching Love Island, and they call them like Jack the Lad for anybody that's a little bit over cocky, I guess, like Chad.
Mm.
So Kip's a little bit full of himself sometimes. So he's also fancy because he'll cross his paws like that. So he is a fancy lad.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so funny. And your little your like logo is so cute with his little, he looks so fancy. But so Fancy Lad Quilt Co. And I will put links in the show notes so people can get to you in a quick little click. And yeah, we'll look forward to your future projects and see which one you release first, whether it's the Greek gods or the,
Romance bros.
yeah, that one. The cowboy. We need the cowboy. Uh, well, thanks again, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you.